Oh, no, but this is not the next one.
Yeah. I was here. Yeah, I was here before her, and then I left. I'm working somewhere else full time, and so now she's like filling in here until you find
You want to do something?
Yeah.
There's so many things.
Yeah. This used to be everything. If I wasn't here, then I was Monday nights with me.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone to the regularly scheduled meeting at Town of Montgomery Planning Board for Monday, September 23rd of 2019. As we normally do, we have a 10-minute comment session. Can I see a hands of people who would like to speak in the comment session? We'll have 10 minutes to comment if you'd like. Barbara?
I'd like to read this into the minutes. It's a letter from my lawyer, but I do have a question for you first.
Okay.
At tomorrow's public hearing, is that a public hearing where we can comment, or is that strictly a finding statement?
Public hearing on the site plan yet.
Okay, because it's not listed that way on the agenda.
The microphone is not working.
Sorry about that. The agenda says nothing
There's no
about
agenda for tomorrow. There was a special notice for the special meeting for Sailfish for tomorrow.
Okay, and it
To
doesn't
discuss
say,
the site plan and findings.
it does not say anything about site plan or special exception
Well, that
use.
was orally adjourned at the last hearing.
Right.
That's what I thought, but it's unclear in the document that is on the website that that it will be a continuation of the public hearing.
That's what was stated at the last meeting.
Okay, it's unclear, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, this is a letter from my lawyers up in Albany.
How long? We got 10 minutes?
That's okay.
Okay.
I represent Barbara Lerner and Lerner Pavlik Realty. I'm writing to you today to impress upon you the importance of including a critically important condition into your secret finding statement. As you know, my client strongly opposes this project due to the significant unmitigated adverse environmental impacts that will cause, not the least of which is significant traffic impacts. We urge you not to move forward a critically deficient FEIS and instead require an SEIS. Only properly prepared SEIS that addresses the deficiencies in the EIS to date can meet the requirements of SECRA. However, we understand that a majority of the board is inclined to approve this project. So instead of focusing upon areas of disagreement regarding the potential impacts of the project, let us focus on one point on which there should be no disagreement. No one wants to be faced with 187 acres of woodland clear-cut for a project that may never proceed. Given the uncertainties facing this project, the Planning Board must assure that no action can be taken to permanently alter the site until the project has been demonstrated its viability. When I commented on the DEIS in January, one of the driving forces at the time was the push by the project sponsor to obtain secret findings by the end of March so it could start clear-cutting trees. I pointed out at the time that the Planning Board must assure that the site is not permanently altered before the project is proved viable. The response to that comment in the FEIS is striking. The applicant admitted its freedom to start clear-cutting upon completion of SECRA and its intention to do so. It also stated that there was no provision in the town laws to preclude that. See FEIS page 2-10 and 11. The applicant has admitted that it can clear cut the lot by leaving stumps in place without even requiring an approved stormwater pollution prevention plan. The applicant claims that there is no provision in the local law to condition an approval upon proof of tenancy or financial viability. It also claims that the applicant or its principal, since applicant has only been in existence for 18 months, has extensive experience developing commercial spaces. It is the lack of existing laws and the tenuous nature of the applicant that mandates a condition limiting site disturbance. No one is interested in seeing 187 acres clear-cut and left an environmental wasteland. The applicant has stated its intention to clear-cut as soon as possible and not wait for any other permit. It clearly intends to present the other reviewing authorities with a fait accompli that the site is already cleared. In fact, there are numerous permitting and financial hurdles facing the applicant, including, but not limited to, approvals from the town board and the ZBA, tax breaks from the IDA, and approvals from the DEC. The applicant has informed the IDA that a tax abatement is necessary to make the project viable. What were to happen if the site was cleared and then the IDA denied the tax abatement? Or what would happen if Amazon decides it is not interested in the project? What would the town be left with? A permanent scar on the landscape to facilitate the greed of a neophyte developer. While the principles of Blue Water may have experience working for other developers, they are in fact little more than a small shop of a couple of individuals without any track record as developers in their own right. The Planning Board has a legal requirement under SECRA to issue findings that, among other things, certifies that consistent with social, economic, and other essential conditions from among the reasonable alternatives available, the action is one that avoids or minimizes adverse environmental impacts to the maximum extent practicable, and that adverse environmental impacts will be avoided or minimized to the maximum extent practicable, and that adverse environmental impacts will be avoided or minimized to the maximum extent practicable by incorporating as conditions to this decision those mitigative measures that were identified as practicable. The greatest environmental threat that could be avoided with a condition of mitigation is the clear-cutting of the site and leaving it an abandoned state. That threat can easily be mitigated by including the following condition in the SECRA findings: that the applicant may not commence any site disturbance activity, including the cutting of any trees, until it has 1, obtained all permits necessary for construction and operation of the project from all federal, state, and municipal authorities. 2, obtained the approval of the SWIP. 3, obtained all building permits. 4, provided documentation demonstrating financing for the construction of the project and a binding commitment from the tenant. This application has generated significant controversy. It is understandable that different people have differing views on how the town should be developed. Members of the Planning Board may feel that overall this is an acceptable project. However, it is doubtful that anyone on the Planning Board feels that it would be appropriate to allow a developer to permanently alter 187 acres for a project with questionable viability. If the project is viable, it can wait to clear cut the site until it has all of its approvals in place. If the applicant protests that condition, that presents a red flag. We urge you to adopt this condition as the absolute minimum necessary to protect the environment and meet the planning board's obligations under SECRA.
Thank you. Okay, our first order of business tonight.
Hello. Did they call the comment?
I'm sorry, we only have 10 minutes?
10 minutes is not up, Fred.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
That's all I need.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Tom.
Michael Gatos, I live in the town of Newburgh. I'm here in support of the project, Sailfish, Blue Water. And sounds like the lady is too, as long as the board does their homework, which I'm sure they will. I think everybody should do their due diligence on any project. It would be not right to do so. But this company has come here with good faith to the building trades, jobs for our members, jobs afterwards. I've been involved with many projects, and companies have come in and not done the right thing. So far with us, they've been upfront, pick up the phone every time, call back. I get a lot of people dodging phone calls. So I think do your homework, do your due diligence like you've always done. I think this board will make the right decision. And I'm here in support of the project. Thank you.
First, next order of business is a continuation of a public hearing for 915 Route 17K LLC. This is State Route 17K in Bracken Road. This is a continuation of public hearing. Representing the applicant is Larry Marshall. How are you, Larry?
Good, how are you this evening?
Good. If you could fill us in on the updated plans.
Sure. We have revised the plan since the last public hearing, continuation of the public hearing. The main change that we made was with the removal of the entrance to Route 17K and the raising and continuation of the berm across the frontage on proposed lot 2. The berm was raised a couple feet where the proposed entrance was going to be. So the entrances now will be there'll be 2 entrances out onto Bracken Road that would serve the entirety of the development. To further screen the existing, or the proposed buildings from neighboring property owners, we have continued the landscaping right through. That is the double row of pine trees that was previously proposed, and that will continue along the top of the berm, right down to the edge of, basically the edge of disturbance. Those are the main changes that we've made. We also made some minor changes to address some of the consultants' comments.
Okay. We had received some correspondence from the fire department. Had you gotten anything from them?
Not until, well, we did receive the comments today.
Today, that's what I mean, yeah. Oh, so you have them. So.
We just got them today.
Yeah, okay.
But we do, we understand that the fire department's desire is to have full access around all 4 sides of the building.
Okay.
For building 1, or for lot 1, we do propose access around 3 sides. The 4th side would be certainly accessible along Bracken Road, although the pavement isn't up to the building itself. The access on proposed lot 2, the warehouse on proposed lot 2, would be afforded through 2 sides. It does meet the, we believe that it does meet the building code requirements for accessible drives for fire apparatus. There is no requirement in the building code to have full access around all 4 sides. We just have to have accessibility within 300 feet of the building itself. So we do believe that we meet that. If we don't, we'll certainly address any comments. As far as accessibility, the front of the building is a little bit difficult to access from Route 17K due to the proposed berm and plantings. But there is an area in between the proposed berm and the building itself that could be accessed by foot.
were you gonna reach out to the fire department and talk to them about all of this?
We certainly can. As having, we just received the comments
Right.
today, we didn't have
We did
any
too.
opportunity to.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, this is a continuation of a public hearing. We'll welcome public comments at this time. Please just identify yourself for the record. Yes, Corey?
Good evening. Yeah, I just obviously wanted to comment on several things I want to bring up. I know last time we were here, I know you guys want to hear something new. You want to hear the same old stuff over and over again. But just so I can say this right up front, I don't believe that we're answering some of the old questions, that we're just letting that all go. We're not answering the questions. And I would like to really see that the board maybe try to answer these questions for the public on what's brought up. I don't want to waste a lot of time. One, and I'll bring it up again, the water well being drilled and verified for the quality and quantity and verification that it does not affect other water supplies, I don't believe has been done.
I believe that it's a
It's
county
been, well-
health department issue, Larry. Don't they oversee this? So they would you would drill a well and then they would review that?
That's correct. We would have to drill the well, test the well,
Correct.
and prove to
Orange
them
County
that it
Health
meets all
Department.
requirements.
all right, now I know Orange County said, yeah, we kind of approve of where the location is going to be, but I thought, even according to your own planning board subdivision requirements, as I brought up before, that it says that, let me see here, that it will not, that you have to test it, that subdivision requirements and technical details, that's what this is called, that this document says, as far as I know, you need to complete this. You need to complete the quantity and quality of adjacent well, water supplies, site selection, make sure that it doesn't affect other adjacent wells. And it also states in your own document that this should be done beyond any additional requirements that may be generated by the secret process prior to receiving any approval and prior to a public hearing, which this is, that this should all be done by the applicant's engineer and must be completed. That is your own document stating such. And I don't believe that's been done.
Corey, what's the site on that?
This is the Town of Montgomery Planning Board, all applicants for subdivision approval. This was dated November 10th, 2004. Now, have you got something new? I don't know, but this is on the website.
Are they the subdivision regs or guidance document?
This says, what this says, all applicants, all applications for subdivision approval. Now, you know, you guys know better than I. I'm just saying, I'm pointing that out, but what caught my eye was that it was supposed to be done prior to public hearing as far as the well. Now, you can take that any way you want to go with it. I'm just pointing that out. Because, you know, I know that other people, not so much me, but other people are concerned about their wells. So I believe that should have been done before you even do a subdivision. Okay, so next one. There was a question brought up and still hasn't been answered, and again, it did minor, but snow removal concerns for the property. You haven't gotten that answer. I'm just asking, why don't we answer the questions? I don't see these things being pushed on. That was in your own documentation, I believe. Either the consultants in the back might have brought up. That's still not answered. Still, you asked, and I know this was asked back in May, architectural drawings for the buildings. We have one lady here that required or asked for that back in May, that, yeah, we can do a architectural drawing, let you see what it's going to look like in May. And I know you said they were going to do that. They said they would do that. I still haven't seen that. I haven't seen it anywhere. I mean, again, I'm just pointing out.
Yeah, we have it.
You have it? I haven't seen it, okay.
We got it. We got that January.
That was a good, but that's exactly what the building's gonna look like. That was not the impression I was given, but okay. I mean, I could be wrong, I'm just pointing this out. The other question I had was, I saw this note, I don't understand, maybe you can answer, something about a bigger culvert pipe along Bracken Road has to be dealt with?
Town.
That's the town's responsibility to deal with? So the town would have to pay for that?
Well, there's a culvert that goes under Bracken Road that's failing.
It's like a 12-inch thing, and it's gotta be 18-inch, so the town pays for that to get that done. Correct? I guess that's what we're saying. I didn't know if the town does it or they're responsible, so.
I don't think it's their responsibility
Okay.
to fix the town pipe.
Again, I mean, those are questions I didn't really see answered, that's what I'm trying to bring this up. And then I'm curious about the highway department asking about an expansion of 17K to the sewer station?
No,
What is that all
they were
about?
asking for repairs to the road or something with the road, which now that there's no, or a lane on the road or something. It was something about adding a lane to 17K to turn into Bracken, which they're not doing anything on 17K.
Okay, well, and I gotta say, I definitely appreciate taking out the 17K entrance. I think that's tremendous, and I greatly appreciate that, so I give them credit for that. Stormwater runoffs, I know in the FEAS dated July 25th on page 6, the item E, it states yes, but it fails to complete the required section for the quantity of water runoff. It just says we're just going to have a new point of runoff is going to be the rooftops. So, and also they said, yep, the runoff can run into adjacent properties. Now, I don't know whose adjacent property is running into. I don't know if you've considered that. I don't know what happens. Does that mean the road will get flooded? I have no idea. Just another question that I don't see really being answered that's been brought up in the past, and that's been since July 25th. Okay, I guess my next question is, I know we talked about the third lot. So I don't know what plan we're working on. First it was going to be a gravel storage, then it's going to be auto repossession. I don't really know what we're doing with that right now, and I know there might have been some talk about changing the subdivision into 2 pieces instead of 3. I don't know where that stands and what actually happens to that third lot, which is where the dump is, or was. What are the chances of being abandoned? I believe one of the members here had mentioned that.
Our concern.
Right. So, I mean, that should be addressed, and, you know, again, is it gonna be auto repossession, is it gonna be gravel, are we not doing anything with it?
Any use for that other than the 2 warehouses, that lot would come back here.
It has to come back, okay.
Yes.
I kind of figured that, but I just want to clarify that. Now, I appreciate the trees going up on 4-foot berms, and that would greatly help hide things, but I do know, and this is up to you guys to follow up with, the Montgomery CAC, they were talking about having deciduous trees along that same route, so, you know, that's being dropped off the plan with the evergreens being put in there. I don't know if that's going to be a big deal for the CAC. I don't know if everybody's reached back out to them saying, oh, we're not doing deciduous trees now for birds and bats, we're putting evergreens up.
Our landscape plan will be reviewed by a landscape architect once we get to the final plan.
Right, the landscape she'll review it, right, but I just know this was a question that the CAC was asking you to come up and do. So I guess the other question that bothers me is, who actually will own these properties? Is it going to be, I know there's Joe Alicio involved. I know he's an LLC. He's helping drive this thing. He's from New Jersey. I know that. But the Skibitzis, are they going to be still involved with this land? Or once this gets approved, do you know who's actually going to be running that if this gets approved? Will they be out of the picture altogether? Are they selling it to this LLC person to develop? Do you have any idea?
We
Don't
don't
know.
really know. Mr. Alessi's a developer of the Skibitsky's owned it.
Well, yeah, he's the point man as far as I know. He's the registered agent.
Sure.
And I know he works for another company. So is it really Paramount that's gonna be running this, or is the Skibitsky's running the background? I don't know.
We don't know.
So who stands to benefit and gain? That's all I'm trying to determine. Another question that was never answered, and maybe you guys don't care, but you had multiple revisions of the FEAS, and one of the things that was brought up last time was how all of a sudden did we all of a sudden lower the water expectations by over 1,000 gallons. It was originally, it said something about 2,500 somewhere in here. I'm not going to find it exactly, but I know it's in here somewhere. And all of a sudden it said the water usage is now, as of July 25th edition, no, it's now 1,500. So you reduced it by 1,000 gallons. So what happened? Why wasn't it reduced in the April, in the March, in the February revisions? It just blows me away. Why all of a sudden does it pop up in July? So that was never really answered, because it just makes me nervous. If you made a mistake then, what other mistakes could be being made here? I just want the due diligence. That's all I'm asking. I'll skip that point there. Now, I know we talked about, I know this is probably going to go through. In all honesty, my gut, I'm feeling that this is probably going to go through. But, and I remember you saying, and maybe you could explain this, that you have the right to set the hours and the conditions of what's used there. So I don't know how that works. I mean, does the public get to weigh in on the hours or not? Do you do this in a work session where we don't comment? Do you do it in a public session where we can comment? How's that done?
It's in reaction to your comments, and it would be what they would like, what your comments have been, and then there would be a negative declaration of environmental concerns drawn up where they would be spelled out, or an approval resolution also, probably in this case.
Because again, as you know, the multiple FEASs that were submitted up until January had certain hours of construction and operation. And all of a sudden in July, it changed to be a 24/7, 365-day operation. And to me, I said back then, that's just unbelievable. I didn't like the hours to begin with. I hate them even more now. So the interesting part, and I started reading the letter that I believe the lawyer wrote, and I found it very interesting. You have the ability to set the hours. You guys are in control of that, is what I understand. I don't know if I have his letter, but he was stating something to the effect of July 22nd letter that the business of warehousing takes place on a continuous basis, and in the absence of knowing who the ultimate warehouse operator will be and having their consent to such an imposition of curtailing the hours, the request to curtail operating hours imposes a significant and detrimental burden on the value and use of the premises. So I found that pretty interesting that somebody we don't know who's going to operate the place apparently has the ability to tell you guys when the hours are going to be. It says, without their consent, we don't know if they're going to agree to that. So if they don't agree to whatever hours and conditions you set, then they should be told to move on and find somebody else who will operate to what you guys want. You guys, you're 7 members here, you're all that I have to support me and protect me. They've got lawyers, real estate agents, they've got the money. I don't. I'm counting on you guys to do the right thing. So, you know, you can look at hours. I mean, I want to be reasonable about this because I want the Skibitskys to do what they need to do to their property. I'm not telling them not to develop it. But to put that burden on these hours is unbelievable to me. And for an example, maybe your operational hours could be 7 to 5 p.m. for operation once it's built. And Saturday, instead of all day Saturday, maybe 8 to 2, that's 6 hours. That's 10-hour days, that's 6 hours once it's built and operating. Maybe you can consider that. I mean, you compare that to the Orange County Transfer Station down the road. They only operate Monday through Friday from 8 to 3:30, and Saturday 7 to 12 only. They're not surrounded by residentials. I brought those pictures last week. I don't know if everybody saw the pictures. I know my intent was just to show some of these lands are B4, some of them are I Park. Regardless, there are households. There's over 100 households there that have to deal with this, and that was the impression I was trying to make and have you think about. So those are just, some of the things. I know, I guess we had the traffic study come in, and it was interesting. I hear that the traffic study, and I'm glad they took the 17K out, because there, 3 years, you had 6 crashes right at the 17K Bracken Road, and 1/3 of a mile to the west of Bracken Road, there were 13 crashes, which I think resulted in property damage. And to the east, 1/3 in the last 3 years, there were 16 total crashes where 2 fatal occurrences happened. So I'm glad they took the 17K out. But I guess I'm looking at you. No, I'm not totally for the project, but I understand the need. I just need you guys to think of us. Yeah, before we move on. I mean, the big thing was this, and you can look into this subdivision, which really
We'll look into that, yeah.
all right, well, that's before we close. I mean, I would hope this is done before we close the public comment, because I know you said last time, so anybody got something new? I mean, I get it, you're tired of hearing the same old stuff, but in order to get something new, then start asking them to answer the questions and try to push back on them, and maybe not in a work session where I can't attend it, but right here in the public forum so we can all see it and hear it. That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Draper. Hi.
I'm Sue Reichart. Guess I'm gonna do it. Use this. Is it on?
Yeah, here you go.
Good. So, I'm just coming up. I know that we have our property abuts Skibitsky's property.
Is it right next to it, or a couple
Well,
lots
in the
over?
back it is. It's on the other side of what we always called the swamp. So it abuts, their property comes down to the swamp. In the back, it abuts it.
To the west.
To the west. Yes, to the west. So our swamp comes out of the Bracken Road Pond, goes down in our property, goes across, connects to them,
Okay.
goes under 17K and goes into Lakeview. It's all one
Okay,
piece there.
I picture it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're really concerned about the water supply. It has been a constant concern for us. It's aquifer, of course, with Bracken Road and all the development. We've been concerned with that for a number of years.
Okay.
But really what I wanted to say tonight was, sorry, I get choked up. It's really a sad moment for us because, we grew up with the Skibitskys. I don't like being in this position with them. They're the people we sleigh rided, we skated with on the pond. These are the things we did together, and we had great times. Our parents, they were in the American Legion together. We did all kinds of things. So Tony lived up on the hill on Fedorka Lane, and Paul is still there. He's west as well. He's still going to be looking at the same thing we're going to be looking at, okay? I don't believe the rest of them are in the area anymore, but it's just a sad moment for us in the community. So I wish I could support it, but I can't because it's practically in our backyard. And if we have industry there 24/7 with the lighting and the noise and the traffic, It's just totally unacceptable to us. There would be other alternatives that would be acceptable, and I would love to support them because I know they've had the property for a while, trying to sell it. It's been for sale for a while. So that's just what I wanted to say. And I also, there are a lot of properties with industrial use that I see that are for sale on Bracken Road in Neelytown. So I don't know why, if we have to use this, why this is being considered where it is on the Skibitsky property on 17K, when it could be back out of sight like as most of the warehouses are. So what I'm thinking about is, right now, there's been a big push for tourism in Orange County. I know they were here, they were looking at the new winery and the Angry Orchards, and I'm thinking about these people that are coming here. They're coming here to go to these new tourist places. Warehouse, if you drive from any 84, okay, and you're coming over, you get off of 17K, what are they gonna see coming into our village for tourism? Is this the quaint community they wanna come to spend their weekend? I don't know. My first impression would be no. I'm just looking at one warehouse after another. It just changes the fabric of our entire community, and it's one of the saddest moments I can remember in my life. So I just wonder, and I was also wondering about Stewart Properties. Why aren't we capitalizing on that? From that property, you could go horseback riding, you could build a bike trail, you could do so many numerous things that would take advantage of that. That would be much, in our liking and thinking, would be more of an appropriate use for that property. I'm just mentioning that. And I also wanted to bring up that introductory law number 8 of 2008, where it said the general purposes of the zoning map amendment are twofold: to facilitate commercial growth in the Route 17K corridor by maintaining a strip of commercial and land zone I-1B along 17K, and to facilitate industrial growth near the I-84, well, in this case, it's Route 747 interchange. So it seemed like the view, in that case, in that decision, your view was the same as my view. The warehouse should not be directly sitting on 17K. I support, Corey with of course, the water supply and the well issues that we have. And also, again, we don't really have that. I've never seen the architect drawing like from my side looking up the hill. It is on a hill, I think I've said that before. So I do just I attached a picture for you of what my backyard looks like now. And this tree line is in the back, and right there is where you would be. Once those trees lose their leaves, you're gonna be looking at the hill with, it's just gonna be warehouses. So I thank you very much, and
Okay. Thank you.
that's all I have to really say tonight.
So everyone knows, we still have comments to get back on the latest submission, so we won't close the hearing tonight because our consultants haven't completed their review on the latest submission. So this hearing will go on. It won't end this evening. It wouldn't end this evening, for your information. Anyone else on 915-17K? Yes, Cherie?
Thank you, board members, and good evening. My name is Sharisa Hawkes, as you know. I'm just going to further some of this, and I appreciate that extension, so I will keep it as brief as possible.
Thank you.
I know, I wrote a thing on my part, I guess, but I second basically what Ms. Rickhart, excuse me. I do believe that there is actually becoming a redundancy in warehouse use in the area, which I've spoken of before very quickly. I think what happens, we're putting all our eggs in one basket, and that's just a consideration as we deal with this. We have to bring in a tax base, and it has to be diversified. The more warehouses that we use, the more we dedicate our zoning land, which is being slowly swallowed up, to one singular purpose. During a contraction, what will happen? Will these sites be abandoned, and because of their uses, we won't be able to go backward? That's a consideration. I also feel that this is not a proper use. We've discussed this. I'm just being in brief. It's not commensurate, it's not harmonious, and there are other uses. The family does have the right to change the zone if they feel limited to request as other zones have been done. So I also believe that I understand there's some constraints with the fire, and speaking to that, I understand and do appreciate the addresses that have been made for the reduction or the elimination of the route on 17K and the addition of 2 rows of trees. I do have a concern and a question for the board in dealing with those, since I've noticed various aspects of landscaping dying and not being repaired. Who's responsible for the review of those trees, and who holds them accountable for the replacement?
The building department.
So the building department inspector?
Yes.
Okay.
He would make sure if they die, they gotta be replaced.
Okay. So one consideration is the fact that in order to get the fire apparatus behind between 17K and those trees, and of course the CAC will evaluate the uniformity of a single type tree and either ask for that to be expanded or not. One aspect that I could think is the reduction in the size of that building as far as width, or reducing it farther down the hill. Therefore, you can also get a apparatus behind it, and I vision something more along 17K, not like what they're doing with the berm, though it's all appreciated and we're moving in the right direction, more like a McKennison, not to be seen and not to be heard. Anyway, my point. As a question, during the construction phases of the building, I'm asking what contaminant trapping method will be used for the prevention of the migration of dirt and debris from the construction vehicles in order to protect the road surfaces as they exit and enter the site?
It would be a stabilized construction entrance.
Okay, so I just
They're
didn't
not
read
gonna
that.
take the mud out on the road, they're not allowed to do that.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that in the SWPP. Let's see. Again, I would like to point out the appreciation of the updating of the line of sight drawings, and I do have them if you wish to see them, but I believe they're in your files, the latest updated one. And they do alter the heights, but I find it a bit confusing where the line of sight from the bottom floor actually has vision higher in the building, or the warehouse proposed building, than the second floor. That doesn't seem to be logical. So again, we're going back to the accuracy of documentation and what they seem to represent. We're accepting forms not being correctly filled out, even though they're dictated to. We're allowing E-code to be used when it shouldn't. So I'm just questioning the validity and the descriptors that they're trying to use for certain projects, including ours. In the old house, in the land which has become dilapidated and uninhabitable, is, from what I understand, is this correct, to be burned down by the fire department should things go forward?
We don't get involved in that. They get a demolition permit, and I don't know if the fire company would do a drill there or not.
Okay, the question I have was basically, what guarantees does the board of the fire people do to make sure that there are no fumes, asbestos, or other toxins released into the air? And is asbestos related items removed prior to burning?
If they were to burn it, I'm sure there'd be an inspection. But we don't get involved in it.
So that's totally out of your purview.
Yeah, out of our.
Okay, all right. A question is for the I'm assuming you said there was changes into the berm height, so it's been made 4 feet?
No, it's been raised.
To what?
I don't recall the exact dimension that it's been raised, but we raised it as high as we could without making it
Unstable?
correct.
I just couldn't find documentation of the height of the berm. I probably missed it.
If you compare the two line of sight profiles in the site plans, they're clearly marked. I just don't have the old site plan to provide you with that dimension.
Okay. So what the question is when will this berm be built in the process? And when will the trees be planted? Is this after the construction occurs of the building? Or is it possible, should we go forward with this plan, to be done prior to help mitigate noise and sight? That's just not possible. That's a question, just at what point is it done? And I guess that kind of coexists with, we understand the SWPP process and the stages, but when construction is initiated, do we have an idea of the duration of that construction period?
I believe we do.
I've not read that in any of the documents stating in the beginning and the end.
I think once they file for a permit, we have more information on how long they expect to take to build it.
Do you know,
Maybe, I don't know.
off the top of your head?
I don't know right now.
So we could be like 2 years long in this kind of thing. One question I also have is the control of the noise for the backup beepers. We've spoke, is specific request can be made by the board, especially if it's proposed at 24/7, 365. What type of suppression? Or are we just going to allow only male, a human marshalling at night to avoid the noise during the night? Has anything been addressed on that?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
So that's later in, when you start finding, I just didn't see anything addressing that in the EA or any kind of engineering.
And it's something that would be a condition.
Okay? I'm not without knowledge, but it's something I'm curious about. There's a discussion about trailer storage on the site. It's a part of the checklist in the SEA, I think. And December 4th, 2018, and it is in other ones, the plan should distinguish between trailer storage spaces and loading bays. I am unable to define trailer storage, how much is going to be left there of unmanned tractor trailer. And I guess in linking that is, our tractor trailer is going to be allowed onto the site earlier than its start time before unload, so that we're going to listen to the rumble of the trucks before the allotted time? Or is this something that gets more further defined as you again conclude it?
Yeah.
Okay? Just so I know. Basically, almost done here. My husband touched on some things. CAC, the third lot, we all know is a concern of abandonment. I guess you answered those. I do want to point out that Mr. Brown, you on the board, sir, want to enhance the livability of the town by progress in keeping historical value of the town intact. You have an eye on the future, but not forgetting the past. I would appreciate you to take all that into consideration, not only to the residents who, as you know, become deeply affected in their quality of life, and they've existed long before this land was changed to an I-3. That occurred in 1964 for the benefit of the owner in order to get a non-conforming use to conform. It used to be residential business at the top end, so it was conforming. So as we look forward, I encourage that. I also know that Mr. McGuire, you say it's really scenic and nice historical place, and you want to make sure that new projects are functional for the character of the neighborhood. Hence, I know all of you have your standing and you have a legal and obliging job to do, but it is also your right to weigh in very heavily. I would ask the board to see that applicants do their due diligence so that we as residents and you as a board receive applications that are correctly and fully filled out and not being excused of, that's minor. There is no such thing as a minor document in governmental business. The way these documents are being filled and accepted, and I understand it's human and it's permissible, but it is not technically correct. And I can tell you, a true government agency, and I've worked for them, would kick them back to you. So I ask for you to take the line and to do what is right. And I look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Anyone else on 915-17K? Yes, Susan?
Yeah, just real quick. I really feel for these people that they had to spend their whole summer doing this, coming to these meetings with a pain in their stomach because of dereliction of duty. This should never have been allowed to happen. And you guys should have asked for new tools a long time ago. If the board was asleep, you could have been awake.
Anyone else? I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing out to get probably the reviews back in the next week or so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we can continue this, October 15th. It's a Tuesday because of Columbus Day. I believe we have Medline first, right? Yeah. So, better make it 8 o'clock. Don't be early.
So, excuse me, Chairman, so you're saying this on the agenda will be at 8 o'clock, but the board meeting will start at 7:30 on Tuesday?
We have a public hearing prior to this one on the 15th, but it's Medline, and I'm sure we'll use that plus. So I don't want to put this off to the end of the month, but we'll try to get something in on that evening. Hopefully we'll have some time for this, for 9:15, 17K that evening, okay?
So when should we be here for Medline on the 15th?
7:30.
7:30.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
8 o'clock, you're welcome. 8 o'clock, motion by John, seconded by Rich. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Yes, Rich.
We received a letter today from DOT. Can we ignore that letter? Is that solely with respect to the 17K access?
I think it should be acknowledged for the record that the 17K entrance was permitted by New York State DOT, and the applicant at this point has chosen to proceed without the entrance. But of course, with that approval, the applicant could go forward with that. At this point, we are declining to do so and proceeding with the plan as it's been amended.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Next this evening is KCE New York 2 LLC and KCE New York 1 LLC, Group 17K in Browns Road. SEU permit site plan. This is a battery energy storage. Continuation of public hearing. Anyone is recused. Don't go anywhere.
Evening.
How are you?
Chairman Hyde Clark. Good, thank you. Again, Hyde Clark, Young Summer here on behalf of the applicant, Key Capture Energy. We have 2 proposed battery storage facilities. The applicant last appeared before the planning board at the August 26th meeting where we had the public hearing open. We did make a supplemental submission to the board on September 9th, and Aaron Curtin here from Key Capture Energy is going to walk the board through that submission, and also just to know we have received the county referral back from Orange County Planning. There was one condition that we agreed to comply with, and we also addressed a number of those other items in the supplemental submission. So at this point, just going to hand it over to Aaron to walk through that supplemental submission.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. As Hyde said, we had a updated submission that we submitted on September 9th. A couple updates in that. The first one was an updated sound study. After working with our vendor, we have decided to install noise reduction kits on the inverters, which will result in a 5 dBi reduction at the closest receptor. Next was an updated landscaping plan that included comments from the town's landscaping architect, which in turn affected one of the visualizations, so that was also an update in the most recent supplement. We additionally addressed the NYSERDA model law. We went through the provisions, looked at how we're going to comply with it, and also walked through the appendices that the NYSERDA model law drafts out, provided outlines for those. The finalized versions for those will be provided before any construction or commissioning will occur. That NYSERDA model law was drafted in coordination with the Department of State Energy Storage Supplement. That was released on July 1st. It's in draft form. It will be finalized on October 1st. We believe that the Department of State had the draft version of the 2021 IFC when they created that. That's something that we as the public don't have access to yet, but we are committed to complying with the Department of State Energy Storage Supplement for New York 2 and New York 11. And with that, we're open to the board for any questions.
Okay, thank you. So we did get a letter from the fire department. I know that they've been in conversation with you in regard to an operations plan. Could you update us on where that stands at this time?
That's correct, yeah, we are hoping to try and meet with the fire department. We haven't been able to find a time that works for both groups, yeah.
Okay, so I think the fire department, okay. We did get a rendering of what the building's gonna look like. Did we get elevations?
Yes, the elevations were provided in an earlier submission in terms of July. Yeah, I believe it was the July submission.
Okay. And then we got another one with some landscaping shown just September 9th, I believe, right?
Correct, yeah, there was one visualization that changed due to the updates to the landscaping plans. We wanted to make sure that that was shown in its correct form.
This is a continuation of a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience has a question or comment on KCE? Yes.
Rena Tipton. I have a letter that I will read and then give to you. This has to do with the generic environmental impact statement for the Tin Brook, which adjoins this property. During the last several months, I've attended as many planning board meetings as possible and appreciate the glimpse into your busy docket. I'm speaking today to reiterate a comment I provided on the final environmental impact statement for the Sailfish Blue Water Amazon project, which is relevant to this project as well. The secret process requires the evaluation of cumulative effects in a community, which are not limited to the action of a single applicant. In the case of the Tin Brook and downstream impacts, there are several projects before the planning board currently that are on the banks of the Tin Brook or within its wetlands and buffer. KCE battery storage, Walden CEC Community Solar Project, Olson Subdivision, Automotive Audio, Matrix Solar, Project Sailfish, the now withdrawn BHT, subdivisions to that same lot of property that they wish to put the junkyard on, and several others. From a quick review of New York State DEC online mapping tools, there are at least 4 speedies permitted discharges to the Tin Brook and surrounding wetlands and tributaries of various volumes. Portions of the Tin Brook flow through regulated MS4 areas and are subject to regulated stormwater management practices. The Tin Brook is colloquially prone to flooding, a valued part of residents' history and landscape, and also adjacent to the water supply wells for the village of Walden. The Tin Brook is a valuable and beleaguered watershed. The applicants before the planning board universally discuss independently the impacts they will have on the Tin Brook and its buffer zone, and wetlands through incorporation of impervious surfaces, loss of wetlands due to construction, increase in stormwater runoff, and increase in hotspot runoff and introduction of pollutants to the Tin Brook. They do not address cumulative impacts, which could include damage to or change to an important ecological corridor bridging Stewart National Forest and the Wallkill River, impacts to the Tin Brook watershed, which may impair the brook's ability to protect water supplies and provide water to the village of Walden, the impact of multiple projects changing flow patterns and volume of water passing by Walden's well field, which sits near the banks of the Tin Brook, and overall aquifer protection. Based on the cumulative impacts to the Tin Brook from development in its vicinity, I request that the planning board pursue a generic environmental impact statement pursuant to section New York 61710 to assess and address the environmental impacts of development within the immediate area of the Tin Brook and associated wetlands and buffers. The conclusion of this generic environmental impact statement should be brought to bear during completion of the secret process for Project Sailfish and for all projects before the planning board that are adjacent to the Tin Brook, the wetlands surrounding it, and its tributaries. Thank you.
Anyone else on KCE? Yes, John?
John Brown, Town Montgomery, Coldenham. As you well know, the Tin Brook is something that's very important to me, and I fully support Karina's comments. But I'd have to say, of all the developments that she mentioned in her presentation here tonight, the one that has been the most responsive has been KCE. KCE has come forward and not only controlled the rates, but in fact the overall runoff volume and limited it to less than pre-existing conditions. and they've been upfront with us in terms of providing that data and doing a good job of really trying to adhere to our local laws, which unfortunately some of our bigger developers have not adhered to those local laws, such as Sailfish. They also have no wastewater runoff into the Tin Brook, as some of the other projects have. So I fully support Karina's statement that we need to look at all the projects affecting the Tin Brook, but in regards to this particular project, I just would like to comment that they've done a good job, and when people do a good job, we should acknowledge that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any board members, any concerns? Yes, Jim.
Could you give me a little more information on the new noise suppression you were talking about, your first point?
Yes. So we worked with our vendors for trying to find a noise reduction kit for the inverters. Basically, this is a kit that goes around the inverters to sort of. No, it's not a fence. It basically it's directly against the inverters, so it wouldn't, just makes them slightly larger than they were before, but it baffles the noise.
Okay, so on your map, can I see the inverters?
Yeah, so the inverters are here. It's not noticeably larger. It's just kind of an extra coating that goes around them.
It's not a...
Does that stand free, ma'am? Is it, or does it, how do you support this?
Yeah, so those would be on foundations. I can actually turn it over to Lisa here. She's our engineer. Or to Taylor.
Hi, Taylor. Taylor Quarles with Key Capture. So SMA is an inverter manufacturer, and so it's the loudest point source at the project, so naturally the one that we look to try to reduce overall sound impacts. So SMA offers a hardware package that essentially pinpoints the locations on the inverter which are most prone to producing noise, and uses a baffle essentially in those locations. So it's not very noticeable. It's not a significant increase in the size of the unit. It's really just attached to the unit itself, and manufactured by the inverter and fully supported by them, both for installation and operations.
Is that an absorbing type as far as sound goes? That's where it kills the frequency?
Yes, so it's both absorbing while also making sure to allow heat dissipation.
Right, so it doesn't get too hot underneath there. Thank you. Yes, Rich?
Yeah, I'm looking through the package of your operation. I know the plans that we talked about in the past. And I appreciate the effort that you put into it. Currently you're storing, don't know what type of battery cell you have inside the building. That's going to be dependent on the operator curve.
Yeah, so we will be releasing an RFP for the exact vendor of the battery, and that's what that operations and maintenance is referring to there. The vendor will ultimately be selected, and a lot of their specific operations and maintenance are coming from the vendor's operation and maintenance manual there.
So, are we talking about different types of lithium batteries, or it could be nickel cadmium or nickel metal hydride?
They will all be lithium ion. Yeah, definitely lithium ion.
Okay, so the fire management plans will basically be fairly similar.
That's correct.
I assume.
Yes, that's correct.
And the fire suppression, et cetera, so you'll be able to work with the fire department to
Absolutely.
work out a plan. All right.
Okay. Yeah, Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to report to the board that I had discussion with Taylor and Scott Reynolds, his electrical engineer, on the 20th, and we talked about different things. First thing I wanted to scale the map as architectural scale. I wanted engineer scale. We discussed intensities, It's 2.9. I felt that was much higher than we are currently allowing there. They informed me that this is mostly off, so this is something that I want the board to think about. It's something that is only turned on in emergencies. Quote me if I get it wrong, Taylor. And that would be hopefully not very often, but the lighting would not be turned on this facility.
Unless there's an emergency.
Yes, and at night, obviously.
So it's gonna operate?
That's correct. Both are unmanned facilities, and so operations and maintenance that's typical and planned would always occur during the day. So really the only time the lighting would need to be turned on is if there was a reason to visit at night, which would be outside of the normal parameters of operations.
My concern is we have houses across the street. And so I feel that, you know, that's one reason I would have recommended this to be much lower. The other is the color. I wanted to get into the more orange again. They can go part way there. They can't go quite as far as I had asked them to because the manufacturer they're buying the fixture from is unable to get there with that color. Also, I need cut sheets for the fixture, and I want the candela tabs for it, and the engineer didn't understand that, so I gave a copy to Taylor tonight of a typical candela accumulation. The other issue that concerns me was the fact that there's going to be a lot of shadowing in here between these units when they're turned on. So I thought they might think it's an open yard, but these structures are 9 to 11 feet high approximately, Taylor. It's set up here like, you know, in rows. And I had a little concern about that, but they seem to be comfortable with it, with the lighting that was provided, because there are obviously shadows and things of that nature. But they felt that they could come in with additional lighting if they needed it. So I wanted the board to think about the higher amount of intensity of these luminaires and the color of the lighting coming off of it. And we don't have to decide it tonight, but I just wanted the people us to think about and talk about it.
Yeah, because they're only gonna come on if they really need to come on.
And
they're not gonna be on all
which
night.
Taylor says is gonna be quite seldom.
Yeah, okay. So,
They also want to consider if there's an emergency, you want them to be able to see well.
true, yeah. If something happens, you, right. Okay. Leslie, you had comments, I know?
I did, actually, and the one question that Rich Monterano asked with respect to the batteries, I think your response has clarified that.
Did Jim get a copy of his submission? It really wasn't in any engineer. He has it. So we're waiting on his review and Leslie, so they probably get that in tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get you our engineers and our planners review. We'll discuss that lighting issue. I don't think there's much else.
Just considering the outstanding items and the amount of review we have been through, I'm just asking if you know, we obtain those letters, maybe go to the workshop the first week of October, and just asking if we're gonna leave the public hearing open or if we can close that tonight.
I kind of hate to close it with outstanding comments from our consultants. I don't think that'd be a good idea.
I would not be in favor.
I think we'll hear from them, we'll get you their comments, and then once we know everything's okay and we discuss it at the workshop, and I think very soon we can.
So will we also be on that next?
You want to be? On the 15th? Or you want to wait till the 20th?
I'd like to go first.
You and a lot of other people.
I don't think we can do that at this point.
Yeah, do it.
It would be. normally, if we have everything in order beforehand, and the consultant's comments are minimal, and you get right back to us, maybe it would be best, we'll go out to the 26th. If everything's in order, we can close the hearing, adopt the neg deck the same evening. We don't have to wait till the next meeting. Okay? 28, 26, days go by. 28 to 7:30. You'd be first up then. We may still be here.
It sounds like that's the only option, so.
But I think the possibility is much greater then, and probably to move even further.
All right, appreciate it.
Okay? Motion by Bill, 28 to 7:30, seconded by Jay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Just please get your plan together with the fire department.
Yeah, I'll give you time to talk to them.
Yeah, we've been reaching out to them.
This is everybody's notice. I'm sorry, 7:30 on October 28th for KCE, because you won't get a letter. Yes?
I'm just wondering, this is an awfully small room, I'm wondering if it would behoove us to have the Medline meeting at the middle school again?
I don't believe that the room will be packed with as many people supporting Medline as there will be people that have something to say, and I think we may have to put a time limit on it so that we can keep it moving along.
I, for one, will be out there knocking on doors, asking people to show up. I think
Okay.
it'll be a waste of time
So-
to do it here.
We're gonna want to discuss the site plan on Medline, you know, the aspects of the site plan, the DEIS, and whether or not we have a final EIS, FEIS by then, I don't think we'll have it complete at all by then, so. My guess is it won't be the last time we'll meet on Medline. We'll be doing this again and again, okay? Yes, Cherie?
Chairman, my name is Cherie Zahakis, as you know. A quick question on your plan and my lack of knowledge. This looks to be on the corner of 17K and Browns Road, and these batteries are highly explosive. So if we, God forbid, aren't they? Lithium could be very reactive. And my question, I guess, is just, since they're explosive and can react, and though we don't ever want that to happen, and I think it's a great environmental kind of way of going about supplying energy. My question is how and what defends from a catastrophic, and I know you're gonna work with the fire department, but just as the public, what kind of defenses for the area, since if you're close to 17K, if things decide to look like rockets, red glare going off there, what kind of attributes are being considered for the area around it? I'm not quite sure of the setbacks.
Go ahead, Carol.
I just appreciate the
Yeah,
answer. I didn't mean to hold it up.
We're not real, okay, go ahead, answer the
Oh,
question.
well, you didn't ask for public comments that I heard, so I'm sorry.
Uh,
Have I
we
missed
did
it?
on that.
Oh,
We spent a half hour on KCE.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Carol. You can
I was
answer.
listening to them speak, not, go ahead.
We have been in email communication, numerous emails with Matthew Hunt from the fire department, and do look forward to getting with him in person. So for this project, there, you know, it's a long conversation, and I'd be happy to go over it afterwards as well. But you know, to keep it brief, there is a inherent fire risk with lithium-ion batteries that does exist. And there's numerous safety mechanisms, both, you know, starting from cell design and the chemistry we choose, up to the integration of those cells, up to the fire suppression system that's within the actual containers and within the building that's purpose-built for that system, and the computer control system that's overlaid over the top of all of that, and then the 24/7, 365 really operations center that's constantly, you know, someone who's trained is watching what's going on, granted not in person, but you know, through a computer and through essentially a hardline internet connection. So that person has the ability to at any time shut a portion or all of the system down, and the system itself and the computer controls that really so the cells are sort of stupid. The computer controls are what tells them when to charge and discharge. Otherwise, they just sit there. So those computer controls are constantly monitoring the voltage and the temperature of every individual cell and every module and every subset of the system. And anytime there's any kind of out of normal operational parameter that's occurring, it automatically shuts that system down. And that could be the whole project, or that could be one of the containers, or just a portion of the container, until that out of normal parameter condition is resolved. And typically, if there is a condition like that, then not only would the computer automatically react, but the person that's monitoring 24/7 would also need to take steps to review and ensure that the issue's been resolved.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Next up this evening is Felizy on Ridge Road.
Can I just
No.
talk to the woman for a second? About maybe a fire.
Go outside.
Okay.
Please, thanks, Rich.
So,
This is Felizy on Ridge Road, SU for the site plan continuation of a public hearing. How are you, gentlemen? Good. You could fill us in?
Yeah, I'm Eric Roby from Hudson Land Design. First thing I want to do is give you the...
Excuse me.
1 second.
Sorry, Eric. Thanks, Rich. Thank you.
Forgot that. Forgot that device.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I just wanted to go over the major changes since we were last here.
Okay.
The big grading issue along the bottom of the building, there were some issues with the ADA grading and some steps that we weren't intending to occur.
Okay.
We fixed all this grading, we've raised the site and pushed out limit of disturbance a bit, but we're still relatively close to what we were before.
Okay.
The other issue was the trees along Ridge Road and trying to save the trees. So we went out there based on what's, the major trees that were identified.
Okay.
We field located all those, and we're not gonna hit the sycamore or the hickory. Those are safe.
Okay.
There's a 12-inch maple that's right in the driveway.
Okay, that's gotta go.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Okay.
that was really the only major changes.
We got a slew of letters or notes from the fire department today.
I saw that.
You got that? So they're requesting a meeting with you guys. So hopefully you can get that set up so that you can figure out what they need.
Okay.
And this is a continuation of a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience has anything to say on Felizy, on Ridge Road? Okay, board, any comments?
No, just addressing the fire department.
Yeah, the fire department, so unfortunately, you're gonna have to get with them so we can move any further.
Yeah.
Too bad we were kind of prepared, but that kind of threw us for a loop the end of the day. Okay?
Questions, Fred?
Yeah, Bill.
Do you have any windows or anything on the doors on the north side of your building?
Actually, I have a rendering. We just got it a little while ago. It's not quite completed, but the general layout is accurate.
The doors are facing Ridge Road, right? I mean,
yeah, the bays face Ridge Road.
Yes, Ridge Road is over here.
Okay, now go to your left, that end of the building.
Over here?
Yes. What's on that wall?
Yes.
No windows, no anything?
Yeah.
Okay, because there isn't any illumination there, and that's why I'm raising the question. Don't have a problem.
Oh, you have them for us?
Perfect. Yeah, I only printed out the main side, but that shows all the sides of the building. I think there's only 2 windows on the side and the back.
Nothing on the north side, so,
No.
okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we all have them, right? Everybody got enough?
Very
10 copies, which should be those.
Thank you, Eric.
Candela tabs, they look pretty good. Let's take a look at them. I'll check them out, I do a little haircut, I'll check them out.
Okay, let me know.
Other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape. We meet with the fire department and then we're up to race. Okay. Again, we're gonna be real busy on the 15th. How much a hurry are you in?
I'll wait.
26th, 28th, 28th at 7:45?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
This is everybody's notice in the audience, like to come out again on this project, 28th of October at 7:45. We'll reconvene this hearing. Motion by John, seconded by Jay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night now.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, next this evening is Alicia Holdings LLC, ASAP Scrap Recycling LLC, New York State Route 208, SU permit amended site plan, continuation of public hearing. Hi Marissa, hi Matt.
Hi, good evening.
You want to fill us in on what you've got?
Sure. So Marissa Weiss of Jacobowitz and Goodwitz and Matthew Town of Willingham Engineering here tonight for the applicant. We're here to continue our presentation. We have a new submission from, I believe the 17th is the date, so from last week. At this point, that's really what we anticipate will be our final written submission. We are here tonight to answer any outstanding questions as well. But basically, we're wrapping concerns up at this point. There were some outstanding questions as to the DOT driveway improvement plan. We have received that approval from them. We have also received approval as of today. We had prior oral confirmation that it was okay from the Walden Fire Department. But just today, as with a lot of other applicants this evening, we received written approval of our fire department access plan and the emergency access plan, as well as we have submitted some additional decibel information, which I'm going to let Matt explain a little bit further.
Okay, we also received approval on the SWIP from Riverkeeper, and I filed the NOI with the DEC today as well. So
SWIP obtained coverage under the industrial permitting scheme, which is applicable to this property as
All right.
And then, yeah, we conducted some additional decibel studies at similar facilities. There was one in Albany. It was actually larger than ours. And at approximately 250 feet away from the operations area, the decibels were under the 57. They were 55. So that met the requirements of the town. And then there was another recycling yard in Middletown that was visited, and at 200 feet, decibel reading was about 48, and that was with a baler, the shear, the material handlers. So they were very similar facilities to what we'll be operating.
Similar equipment.
Similar equipment, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's pretty much it.
Basically it.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a continuation of a public hearing. We'll welcome public comments. Please just identify yourself for the record. Anybody want to make a comment? Yes, Stephen?
Yeah.
Is it Stephen or Steve?
Either one.
Okay.
Either one. This is a very good read for the town. This is not just about the noise, but it's the air quality for the surrounding area around where they will be baling the materials. There's considerable notice of manganese that's what's within iron and stainless steel when it's processed, when it's shredded, cubed, and it's released into the air. It's in the Chicago Tribune and everything. Actually the EPA fined these shredders twice in the last year about releasing too many hazardous material particulates into the actual air.
This is a shredder?
Shredder, cuber, it's all falling under it. It's a good read, it's a good read. You should read the whole thing. That's yours to keep. And it's all talks about car crushing. They said the noise is not really the issue as much as the hazardous material. Actually, in California, where they have these shredders and these cubers where they emit all the rubber, the foam, and everything, it goes out into the air. They tried even spraying it with water to keep the dust down, because I believe in the code book they have to not just keep the noise down on property level, but they cannot let odors or dust migrate off their property as well. And they noticed up to a half a mile after they've been trying to control these problems with the hazardous material particulates in the air, that it's drifting over about half a mile. Within a half mile, you got Shanty Manor that's right next door. You have a farm that's behind us, a residency.
This is a shredder. You guys have a...
I have it's a great article. No offense, but that's regarding the shredder. We don't have a shredder. We are not shredding.
It's just quite an operation here.
That's completely different from what we are doing. That's what we will be selling to.
Oh.
We are not doing any of that stuff.
So,
same thing with manganese. We are not accepting manganese whatsoever. We are not shredding manganese.
Manganese is known as in iron and stainless steel also. So how do you know if it's not in that iron? And you got the wall is for a half a mile. You got the border in the state that could get polluted. Who says in 10 years, who's going to be guaranteed that that land is not going to be hazardous waste area in 10, 15, 20, 30 years in the future? Is anyone going to guarantee that? It's in a code book, so nothing can migrate off the property.
Thank you. Anyone else on ASAP? Yes, Barbara?
I did have a question regarding the noise level. Is that when you say the decibel level that you tested, is that your average, or where's your high-low? Because with anything on impact, you're going to get a very loud sound, and then it drops back to ambient or below ambient volumes. But that impact is going to be loud. So where is your range for noise level? Because you're going to have a range instead of an individual point in time for noise.
How did you register the decibels? You had a meter?
We had a meter reader. I went to a scrapyard in Albany, which is quite in the country, and we're dealing. They're operating a baler. They're operating 3 material handlers, 1 shear, and 1 wheel loader.
So what you're saying is that the noise level never changes?
I'm sorry?
The noise level never changes?
Yeah, it went lower, absolutely. Yes, it did go
So
lower.
what is your range of what is your decibel
The
range?
highest it went, I believe, was 50.
What is the high and what
At
is
that
the low?
scrapyard that we were at, 55 was the high, and the lowest it got to was 47. And again, that's with 3 material handlers, 2 shears, and a baler. We are only going to have 1 material handler, 1 baler. That's where the other reading was for Middletown, and the highest on that was 47. 47 was the highest on that one.
Were these tests that were done by you, or that were done by someone else, an independent lab?
No, we bought a decibel reader and
So
filmed it.
these are your readings, not an independent lab reading.
All right, thank you. Yes, Stephen.
I forgot to add, they're going to be noticing how they're going to be cubing everything. We all know it's vapor in gas tanks. It also mentions in there about explosions, because we all know gas vapor is more explosive than the fluid itself. If there's a fire within when you want to build,
what's going to blow up now?
The vapor in the fuel tanks.
They're drained.
They're drained. There's still vapor.
They're sucked out, and they got holes in them.
So it doesn't have vapor in it. The city of Chicago actually, the EP actually fined these material handlers
It's a
twice
shredder.
for like $2.5 million. Who says they're not going to upgrade to a shredder later on?
Then they have to come back.
Yeah, we'd have to come back.
And so there's not going to be any fires from crushing gas tanks in vehicles, cars, motors. No fires, no explosions. There's sparks and vapor, fuel, oil, everything. We already went through that. They left vapor inside. There's only vapor left and residue, which creates vapor. And when you crush metal, vapor can ignite. Right. And now there's a 1,000 gallon tank basin that's underneath this cuber. obviously spark goes down in there, lights that on fire. And now you got 1,000 gallons of fuel, oil, coolant, that's on fire.
It's pneumatic to keep down, so there's no spark. All right. Karina, you got a question?
I did.
I've sold the whole thing. I haven't been keeping up with this, so I don't recall what the hours of operation are for this facility with the.
7 to 5.
So the reason why I'm
5 days
asking,
a week.
5 days, not 6 days.
Noon on 1 o'clock, maybe on Saturday.
Till noon.
I go by it all the time.
Till noon on Saturday.
The reason why I'm asking it, it's partially the noise concerns, but also because of the traffic concerns. We've talked before, I think, about how there's not really a traffic plan for people that are bringing their scrap vehicles to the site. And if the operation hours are overlapping with school periods, I don't know that the Village of Walden or the Hamlet of Wallkill has had any input or any communication from this planning board to talk about the impacts of traffic hauling scrap metal through the villages at 7 o'clock in the morning. Because that's when I like to get all of my dirty errands taken care of personally.
Yeah, I know.
So,
Okay. I mean, it's
my
not-
comment has to do with whether or not those are appropriate
8-10
business
cars a day
hours
at the most.
with the traffic.
This isn't a high volume traffic generator. It's just a few cars a day. People bring stuff in. Saturdays will be busy, maybe. Maybe. Yes, Barbara.
I do have one other question, and this goes way back to the very beginning. My first question concerned insurance. Do you plan on carrying the environmental, what was it called? The exclusions on a typical policy? Will you continue with the exclusions, or will you maintain an environmental pollution policy on your general liability or your property? And also, as far as the equipment, the company that manufactures the machine that sucks out all of the fluids, when I called them, they told, and I asked them specifically, I've asked this question before, they said that they do not have, since they don't have a presence in, or did not at the time have a presence in New York, they didn't have product liability in New York. Have you checked into any of that? I mean, the two insurance questions to me are quite relevant, as I've been unfortunately dragged into pollution claims in the past.
They're gonna have insurance.
Will they have a pollution exclusion on their property? Which is typical in a property policy.
Yes, they will.
They will have the exclusion? Because that means that's like not my fault. Insurance company is not gonna pay for any contamination. That's why they call it an exclusion.
The facility, any pollution that could be potential is going to basically be runoff, right? That's what we're talking about. They do have a SWIP in place, and DEC is continuously monitoring that site. I'm not saying they're paying for it, I'm saying that they will be looking at it, and they will,
That's
an environmental watchdog.
That's stormwater. I'm not talking about stormwater. SWIP is stormwater. I'm talking about contamination, other contamination from on-site materials, which a pollution exclusion will not cover. You will not have coverage.
The SWIP is for contamination from on-site materials as well. That's the multi-sector general permit for industrial activities. So it's stormwater and
everything else.
contamination from what's on site, yes.
So it will cover if there is a leak or an overflow or something from one of the tanks that this, but yes, disbursement.
That's the point, yeah, that's what it's in place.
Anyone else? Yes.
Yes. Brian Stephen from Walden. When you dismantle the cars and take all the fluids out, is that building enclosed or is it open? Open with a roof on it?
It has a roof over top, but it's open on the sides.
Okay. Now, what items do you vacuum out or do whatever you gotta do to get all the fluids out?
What liquids?
What liquids?
Everything.
What's everything?
Gas, oil, fluid, windshield wiper fluid, brake fluid.
Antifreeze, everything.
Antifreeze.
You bought a wand, right?
Yeah.
It's got a small apparatus that sucks even brake fluid and
Air conditioning.
everything.
Tanks are being
Refrigerate?
Differential?
Okay,
Wait.
now, what about your differentials?
Can you speak
How
up
can you- how
just so
can
we
you-
can hear, sir? Both parties. Sorry, thank you.
With your differentials, how do you suck the oil out of the bearings in the wheels?
That one that's being crushed into the baler, that is sucked into the catch basin as well as there.
Okay, and then you have residual oil in the tubes itself.
I'm sorry,
You have residual oil in the tubes themselves as well as the bearing housings. Okay. What about transfer cases?
So again, I don't know if you were here when we have the Envirac, everything will be drained from that. Then from that process, we're sending it over to the baler that will compress everything and get all the liquid out. I'm not saying there's not gonna be maybe a couple drops in there or something. Right. Absolutely, that's every scrapyard in America, that's how it is. We have every procedure in place. We've gone above and beyond. We have in the baler on the side, we're gonna have 55-gallon drums, a couple of them, that will be constantly be draining the catch basin so nothing adds up in that catch basin, it constantly gets empty. And like we said before, DC will be coming in to make sure that everything's being done the right way so we're not getting fined.
And how wide the building inside takes it to the pit? You follow what I'm saying? Like a funnel? Like a funnel. How wide is the funnel that's gonna take the?
Oh, I don't have the measurements with that on me. I mean, we had it before. It's a pretty decent sized funnel that everything's leaking into. It's not like a small one.
Right,
It's
no,
a decent size. It covers almost from wheelbase to wheelbase, so it's almost that big.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Board, any comments?
Just one.
Go ahead, John.
Thanks for the operations procedure manual. It looks, in my knowledge, it looks perfect. So just keep in touch with the fire department. That's key.
Rich?
Did you see they gave us an approval letter?
Yes.
Yeah, the fire department, we got that 5 o'clock.
Yeah, 5 o'clock.
Just the concrete pads, that they be angled or whatever, so the flow will run into a central.
No overflow. Correct. Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that on the lighting plan that I have, you indicated the 5 LED 13 watt 3000 K type 2 distribution. It's important that you adhere to that. Like to get in under 3,000 if they don't show it, except for going very deep with a less than 580 nanometer wavelength, and I'm not going to push you into that, but just be sure you got the small wattage and the type 2 distribution with the 3,000 Kelvin temperature color, okay? Thank you.
All right, yes. Yes, Steve.
I just want to know, is there anything going to be done about the odor and the dust? It is in your code book for them to uphold this.
Odor and the dust?
Yes.
Is there odor in the dust now?
I'm saying you're going to be crushing cars, everything's going to be squeezed out like you mentioned. There is wind, you're 100 feet away. In your code book, it says you cannot have dust or odor migrate off your property.
I don't think there's much, no.
It's on your code book.
Right, I agree.
Is there anything going to be done about this?
The cars cover, when they crush, they cover it with steel.
fire precautions in the back?
Yeah, there's gonna be that. Extinguisher.
Okay. There is no traffic plan, but you do have a traffic,
To fire access.
an access plan inside?
Yeah, and there were counts submitted to the DOT, and they approved it.
Okay, so they just didn't get a copy of them, of course. The rail trail is higher than the berm, so therefore the facility will be visible from the trail, which we know it's not right.
Yeah.
It's the opposite. And they hadn't received the SWIP, which we got the sign off from River Keepers today. All right, just I wanted to note that this had come in. Okay. All right, anybody else? You got some comments being prepared, but not much? Okay. All right, well, I'm thinking maybe this one we could just at least vote out, at least close the hearing. I don't think we're gonna hear anything new. We've got the sound taken care of. They got the equipment, the plan is in place, how everything's gonna function. So I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing on this by Bill, seconded by Ryan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We don't have a neg deck, so we can't grant approval, but we'll work on that. But this is the end of the hearing, public hearing on this, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll get a neg deck put together, and we'll review that, and then we'll put you on the agenda when that's ready. Okay, and then you won't have to be here for 2 hours or something. Somebody can stop by.
Thank you.
Okay, well. Next this evening is Red Birch Inc., New York State, 17K, SU permitted amended site plan, 3-lot subdivision. This is just a presentation. How are you, Larry?
Sure, how are you?
Okay. Sure.
So this is a revised application for the Red Birch LLC project. I believe a majority of you remember this. This was approved as a self-storage, and we do maintain that approval. Have been continuing that since we received the approval for the self-storage. The owner of the property has actively been marketing for sale, and what we found is that any potential buyers find the amount of self-storage just to be too large, too much.
Okay.
They have all said, scale back the amount of self-storage, find something else to do with the property. So the owner of the property actually approached us several months ago and asked us to work up an application to utilize the rear of the parcel in a different manner. So what we have shown is it's a proposed 3-lot subdivision where lot 1 would contain the self-storage. And we do maintain the 2 climate-controlled buildings. They would be constructed in the same manner, same style as was previously presented. It very much looks like a barn. And then we do have the proposed entrance to the rear. And then we have the standard non-climate controlled exterior entry self-storage buildings. We have rotated them 90 degrees back to about where the RA2 boundary comes in. And then from behind there, we do have 2 proposed warehouse buildings. 34,000 square feet roughly in both of the buildings. They are proposed to serve by one entrance into and out of the site. And consistent with the B4 zoning district, those warehouses would be restricted to no more than 2 loading docks or loading doors.
Okay.
So we have extensively talked to the applicant regarding that, and they are amenable to that restriction of having only 2 overhead doors.
Okay.
Obviously, preliminary plan, lots of work to do.
Sure.
But we wanted to receive your initial feedback regarding this application.
is that on 17K?
It's, by Harmony Lane. The old, what's there now? There is the building next door, there's the used car dealers. Just before it, if you're heading towards Newburgh. And before that, there used to be a CrossFit place. I'm not sure if the CrossFit place is still there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there was a plumbing place in that building.
Right.
So we sell cars there. It's on the north
Oh,
side
okay.
of 17K.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a half mile
Okay.
over.
Has there been any demand with a building this size for like bulk storage? Like somebody wanted to put something inside that would, like a camper or something?
For a building, what do you mean?
Well, they're in the storage building business, self-storage. I mean, I know that there's some self-storage areas that they store stuff outside, like a boat or a camper, something of that nature. I didn't know whether there was a demand for that at all.
There's a demand for that exterior storage only.
Exterior only for
Yeah,
something that size, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
The problem with, and we run into this, I've worked for several applicants in several municipalities with self-storage, and the problem with storing vehicles is insurances.
Sure.
Any, especially the large corporations, the storage facilities, all require, if you're storing a vehicle, and it could be an antique vehicle or a motorcycle or a lawn tractor, it must be drained of all gasoline before it's stored.
Okay.
And that's a requirement in their lease, in their rental agreement, as well as the insurance requirements.
Okay.
So obviously, for sake of potential fires.
Okay.
Is that true with motorhomes and things like that, Larry?
Yeah, so motorhomes are typically stored outside.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
you mean in the storage?
Inside.
Sorry.
Outside is different because, you know, obviously there's still a risk, but it has a far less risk of substantial
Oh, sure.
damage.
He had originally had some down in back, I think he told us.
Right.
Yeah, all the way in the back, we did have some storage.
Right.
We have extended the gravel area behind self-storage building F for the potential of some storage. We haven't labeled it, we certainly can. Obviously, as I said, the plan is very preliminary in nature. Here to receive some initial feedback.
Anybody else?
Basically have a short question. Is this intended to be mostly for bulk storage, or is it gonna be in and out type of operation?
No, it's not a substantial amount of traffic. The users are, you're talking about the users for buildings 2 and 3. No, it's not a distribution facility or anything. It's, they don't have a lot of traffic generated. It's not, they don't have constant flow in and out. A lot of the companies that rent this size building are looking for or bring in goods from other countries and then distribute them locally.
Okay.
So you may get a tractor trailer in, they unload it, and then you would ship out via UPS or FedEx, that style. So you may get a trip or two a day from a UPS truck, and you may get a trip twice a week from a large tractor trailer.
Any chance of manufacturing or anything else in the sense?
I haven't asked them about that, but I certainly can.
Well, all of a sudden you have a lot of employees and a lot of parking needs. That's my question.
Yeah, they asked us to lay it out, for the warehouses. We didn't look into manufacturing. We leave primarily the marketability of the property and what they would like to do with it to the applicant. We put the plans together.
Yeah, they're probably gonna look something similar to what you had before, as the outside agreement. And I take it then you don't have any end users yet, you market them.
Yeah.
Larry, we're seeing that the fire department is concerned about four-sided access on all buildings in Alabama.
Yeah, and that's gonna be, we can certainly, look, I mean, as far as accessibility around the four sides, that's gonna have to be a continued conversation with the fire department. We'll certainly work with them. The plan the stormwater that you see on the plan is just a carryover from the self-storage.
Sure.
It has to be adjusted, it has to work for this, the grading plan has to be done. So we will certainly look at providing them some means of access around the outside, even if it's just a gravel road. Obviously not intended to be used by customers or employees. But we can certainly.
Larry, you indicate the downsizing of the approved facility in the front, just in rough numbers, how many square feet less? I'm talking about the self-storage.
So, I don't know the exact numbers. I think we were somewhere in the neighborhood of like 140,000 square feet, and I think we're down to about half. I would like to get back to you on that though, please. And I don't want to be quoted later.
And that project's on extension, I think you mentioned.
Yes.
And the plan is to continue that until when? I mean, we can't have two approvals for the same.
No, at the time, if we get to a point where the board is prepared to act, they will vacate that approval and then move forward with this one. They just like to preserve that one just as a.
Thanks.
Anything else, board? No, thanks. Thanks for your patience.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Larry, you think this is unlisted?
It's not for previous ones. No, I think we're over 10 acres of disturbance. Can I get into a type 1?
Would. Does the board want to start seeking out at large unit leases type 1, 10 acre disturbance? Declare lead, so you would have to coordinate, and you might as well declare lead right out of the box.
May as well. Entertain a motion to declare lead by John, seconded by Jay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Frank, we need active application.
We have an application.
Okay.
Is it fully AF?
I'm not sure.
Well, we can't take it.
You can meet EAFC.
What's that?
We have EAFC.
Well, you could waive it. But I think you're
Okay. Yes, Corey?
Just a quick question, I didn't see it. So it's one building that's gonna be for self-storage, about 70,000 square foot.
No, it's self-storage.
Self-storage.
So there's they're like 8 by 10.
Correct, like a Guardian or whatever. You
There's
put your
5 or
stuff
6
in there.
buildings or something.
So what, the other building 2 and 3, you listed as a warehouse, or did I hear that wrong? I just wanna make sure I heard it right, that's all.
Two 35,000 square foot warehouse.
235,000 square foot warehouse.
Larry, you submitted a short EAF.
We can get you a
Can you get one? You can't circulate till you do that. Unless you say take your time.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Next this evening, Chandler Heights, Chandler Lane, 9-lot residential subdivision, extension request of conditional preliminary approval was granted in 28th of September in 2015. There's been six months extensions. It expires soon, the 28th of this month. Any discussion on Chandler Heights? We'll get the
Clearing now. It's a site.
okay. All right, I entertain a motion to grant the 6-month extension out to March 28th of 2020. Motion by John, seconded by Jay. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Signify by saying aye. Aye. Last but not least, motion to adjourn. Thanks, Brian. Second by Jay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Thanks, everybody. How are you? Come on.